So coming up this weekend is going to be UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura, and my predictions are like 4 or 5 days late. I had a pretty busy weekend, I kind of had a lot going on, and I did end up just coming home today. And here I am to give my picks. I guess the good thing about being so late to predictions is I have actually watched a lot of other people's opinions and a lot of other YouTubers, so I guess I can kind of compare my picks to other people in this video. Usually I record and upload my videos on Sunday night for me, and I'm typically the first person. Sometimes one or two other channels can beat me to it, but I'm typically first usually. And I don't obviously have anyone else's opinion, but at least on this one I do. And another thing as well is it's actually a pretty good time right now at the end of the week to use a 3-day free trial, which you can get to the UFC Picks premium membership program, because at the end of the week is when all of Jacob and Angelo's bets are already up, as well as the DraftKings optimizer and everything else that you have the opportunity to use on that website is all ready to go. So at the end of the week, you can sign up right now using my code ARTEM for a 3-day free trial for the UFC Picks premium membership. It is $10 per month after that, but you can cancel during the 3-day free trial if it just is something that you're not so interested in. But that's it for the intro. Let's get into the first fight of the night. Chad Anhaliga taking on Charalampus Grigoriou. There are some people picking Chad, and I do understand why, because honestly, I still don't know how to feel about Charalampus Grigoriou, because I did pick against him on Dana White's Contender Series, which my predictions for that season were not very flash, I'll be honest. But I picked Cameron Smotherman to beat him, and I was pretty confident he was going to beat him because I thought he was going to be the much better striker, but it ended up being Grigoriou knocking out Smotherman pretty quickly and easily in the first round. I did think that Grigoriou could potentially have a wrestling advantage in that matchup, but I thought the striker and the boxing of Smotherman was just going to be too good, and it wasn't. Grigoriou is kind of interesting to me though, because he still hasn't really impressed me too much aside from that Dana White's Contender Series fight. He took on this guy that was on short notice and had a pretty bad record. And then this guy against Joey Crisostomo, who's 2-5. He kind of just struggled to out-wrestle, which is just a really weird look, to be honest. I just don't still understand how good Charalampus Grigoriou is and how far he can make it in the UFC's bantamweight division. But I do think that he can get past Chad Anhaliga. But the problem with Chad Anhaliga is, although he's 37 years old, I still think Chad's a decent fighter. Yes, he's coming off a loss to Jose Johnson by submission, which is an odd kind of loss considering Johnson is a Muay Thai striker, and a loss to Hailey Alateng, but Hailey Alateng's a pretty good fighter, and he just has a pretty bad record, because he has fought some good guys throughout his career. He beat Jesse Strader, but that's fine, and he beat Marian Gafarov in a fight, which, to be honest, I thought he lost, but it is what it is. I think in this one here, it's going to be Grigoriou having to defend takedowns, because I do believe Anhaliga is going to want to wrestle, but Grigoriou does have the ability to wrestle himself, and he showed me on Contender Series that he does have power, that he can finish fights on the feet. So with a very low confidence pick, I am going to pick Grigoriou. I think the odds are going to be too wide for this fight, especially with my confidence. I'm not confident at all. I was very tempted to pick Anhaliga. It's just that he's been inactive. He's 37 years old. I guess he's been pretty active since his last fight, but I like Grigoriou in the first matchup. Very low confidence pick though, and now I can move on to another one, which I'm not that confident in, because it's Corey McKenna taking on Jacqueline Amarim. And one thing I can tell you about Jacqueline Amarim, her grappling is elite. It's elite. She's a multiple-time world champion in BJJ, to my knowledge, and you see it in her fights, man. She's so good at submissions. She had Sam Hughes, who was actually a pretty good fighter and is better than her record suggests, in quite a bit of trouble in that first round, but then she completely gassed out. She did show in that fight as well that she wasn't really strong enough to finish a lot of submissions that she had locked in, which is a little bit disappointing. Sam Hughes was able to tough out the first round and then dominated her after that. But then she went out there against the Monserrat Ruiz, who is kind of decent at wrestling, and she just absolutely dominated her with ground and pounds in that matchup using her elite BJJ. Corey McKenna, I think, is probably going to be advised to keep this fight on the feet, although she can wrestle quite well herself. I just think Amarim is she's too dangerous on the ground, which is why I'm going to be picking her. I'm not very confident though, but I do feel like if this fight does get to the ground in one way or another, especially in round 1, Amarim is going to put McKenna in a lot of trouble, and Amarim isn't just, a grappler. She can KO girls on the feet. She does have a couple pretty impressive wins on the feet. I was looking for the one knockout she has in 10 seconds, which is crazy. She has shown that her striking isn't amazing, but she's got power. She can make it work. But I think where the matchup is going to be most favored for her is in the grappling, so I do like that because I think the fight is definitely going to go down to the ground at some point. I'm picking Amarim. If she doesn't get a finish in the first round, there's a good chance that McKenna might be able to take over, but I do like Amarim in this matchup. And now we've got Joshua Culibao taking on Danny Silva. There's a lot of people out there that are picking Danny Silva. I will be honest, I just think that Joshua Culibao, I just think he's too good, man. Like, I know that Joshua Culibao, he did lose to Lerone Murphy pretty badly. Took a lot of damage in that fight, which is a little bit unfortunate because Culibao was going into that fight with a lot of hype. Was on a pretty good win streak, a win over Malsik Bagdastarian, which is great. Sungwoo Choi, although he doesn't have a great record, is still a good win. Sungwoo Choi is a Muay Thai champion in South Korea. And Shayla Nurdenbicki, I think, is actually a pretty decent fighter. He just doesn't have very good cardio. Danny Silva, I feel like fights like Trevor Peek at 145 pounds. And I do use that as a compliment, but also not really too much. I do think he's more technical than Trevor Peek, but I think he's got that sort of fighting style where he's super, super aggressive. He's got decent boxing, he works the body really, really well, but he throws a lot of hooks, man, and he does leave himself pretty open on the feet as well. He absolutely dominated Angel Pacheco, but I don't think Angel Pacheco is as good as a lot of people are saying he is. A lot of people are kind of rating that Pacheco win very highly. I thought Silva was going to beat Pacheco pretty easily. Pacheco, I don't think, is UFC level, just to kind of put that into perspective. And Silva couldn't finish him, even though he was super, super tough. Pacheco took some massive shots, and Silva did dominate the fight pretty much with his power. I do just think it kind of comes down to Culibao just having that experience against much higher level competition. I think that Culibao can find success on the feet. I do think he might even be able to find success on the ground as well. I just think using his all-roundedness, his experience against much better competition. I do hate picking people based off experience because I do feel like it's kind of like a lazy reason to pick someone, but I definitely do think it might apply here, which is why I'm going to be going with Culibao. I just think he's too good, man. I feel like he's kind of proven himself a lot more than Danny Silva has, so I'm going to go with Culibao. But Silva's going to be dangerous. He's got a lot of power, and he throws a lot of hooks. He's very aggressive, like Trevor Peek, as I mentioned. And now we've got Thiago Moises taking on Mitch Ramirez. I'm very confident Moises wins this. I think his money line's like minus 450, minus 500. That kind of does reflect my confidence in him. I do just think that Ramirez is a good fighter. He's a good striker. He did kind of get exposed on Carlos Prates, but he is a pretty decent striker with really good leg kicks, but he keeps his hands really, really low. But I don't think it's the striking that he has to worry about with Moises. Moises is an elite grappler, a pretty good wrestler, and I'm pretty confident that Moises is going to be able to take down Mitch Ramirez. It's also worth noting that this fight is at 155 pounds. Short notice for Mitch Ramirez, and he used to fight at 170. I think 155 is actually a very good move for him, though, because he did look a lot smaller than Carlos Prates on the Contender Series. But yeah, I'm going to go with Moises. I'm going to go with Moises by submission. I think he submits Mitch Ramirez pretty early on into the matchup, which is why I'm going to be going with him by like first or very early second round submission. Ode Osborne is going to be taking on Jafel Filho, and once again, a somewhat common underdog that some people are picking, but I do just think that Jafel Filho, I think his grappling is too good again. I feel like it's almost a similar matchup to the Amarim versus McKenna fight, but not really. Osborne's a pretty solid boxer, and he's got really fast hands, and that's one thing that I do note about him at his game at flyweight. He's fast, and fast for flyweight as well, and he's a pretty big flyweight too at 5'7". He does have some highlights. He has been on the receiving ends of some highlights, but he's still a pretty solid fighter in the UFC. I just don't think that his grappling is going to be good enough to pick up with Jafel Filho. It is once again worth noting, though, that he got rocked by Daniel Barrios. Daniel Barrios hit him in a lot of trouble on the feet. Filho had to tough it out, and then he eventually got the submission pretty early on in the fight. But he still found Barrios found a lot of success against him on the feet in that matchup in the first round, and maybe Ode Osborne could make it happen. I do just think Filho's going to be able to get the fight down to the ground, and I do think Filho's grappling is just going to be too good. You know, he did fight on the Contender Series and took on a pretty tough guy with a padded record, but Royber Echeverria is still a solid fighter, and then he fought Makayev and had a lot of success against Makayev in that matchup too. I do think Filho wins by submission. Osborne's a solid underdog that people are picking, but I think that Filho's grappling is just too good for this matchup. And now Josiane Nunes versus Chelsea Chandler. This is a fight which, in my opinion, there's no correct pick. And what I mean is, I feel like if I picked Josie Nunez, I have the opportunity to look really stupid. And if I pick Chelsea Chandler, I've got the opportunity to look really stupid as well. This is just a fight which, it's not obvious who to pick. And like, I know that doesn't make sense, because it's MMA, it's the most unpredictable sport in the world. There's no correct way to pick this fight, man. What is this? You know, Josiane Nunez is coming down from 145 at 5'2". Now she's coming to 135, and Chelsea Chandler's coming down to 135, and she's going to be significantly bigger than Nunez. And she's a grappler, she's a wrestler. And I like that in this fight. I am picking Chelsea Chandler, very low confidence. I feel like I could look really dumb because her striking's terrible, and that's what Nunez is. But one thing I have noticed with Nunez is it almost feels like she might only have that striking, and her striking isn't very technical. Yes, she's got power. Yes, she's knocked out girls before. Bea Maliki she KO'd. And I believe she had Pasquale knocked her down a few times in that matchup. Sierra Fan kind of figured her out on the feet, which isn't the best look. I can just see Chelsea Chandler using her size and out-wrestling and out-grappling Josiane Nunez in this matchup here. Because Nunez is not big. She's 5'2". She's not even like a massive 5'2". She's, I don't know, she's not big. She won't even be big for 135. Chandler is going to be massive for 135. I like her to use that size. I like her to take down Nunez and win the matchup. But if Nunez knocks out Chelsea Chandler, yeah, I'll look like an idiot. But it is what it is. Let's move on to Mike Davis taking on Natan Levy. This is an interesting fight, but I do just kind of feel like Mike Davis might cover Natan Levy's skill set almost everywhere. You know, Mike Davis has proven that he's a really good striker. He proved in his last fight against Borchev that he's a really good wrestler. And then you will go to the wrestling if he wants to. Natan Levy is a karate guy with really good grappling. And he doesn't really wrestle unless he gets in trouble. In his matchup here against Genaro Valdez, which was his last matchup, he didn't go to that wrestling until I believe it was the second round, when Valdez actually managed to put him in some trouble on the feet. And I think that he's not really going to have that option here against Mike Davis, who is pretty big for welterweight, so pretty big for lightweight, at 6 foot, with good wrestling, with good striking. I just feel like it's one of those matchups, man, where I feel like Mike Davis just covers Natan Levy everywhere. Levy is very dangerous in the grappling, but I don't think he's got the power on the feet to knock out Mike Davis, and I think that Davis is just going to have the opportunity here to have a pretty good performance overall. I think he's going to look good on the feet. I think he can wrestle if he can stay safe against the grappling, and I think he can get it done just by decision. I think this is a good matchup for Mike Davis to get a win, and then maybe he could look up to a higher level opponent, maybe even like a guy like Thiago Moises. Maybe that's throwing him in the deep end, but at the end of the day, Davis doesn't fight that often, and he's still almost 32 years old, so let's get Mike Davis in there with a better fighter if he can get past Natan. I like Davis here. I think it's a matchup that he definitely does get to buy with. GM3 is going to be taking on Bryan Barberena. Man, this whole card is a bit of a mess, but this fight is also a little bit messy because I'm not the biggest fan of Bryan Barberena. I know that a lot of people love him, and a lot of people say that he puts on fun fights. I don't know. I just don't know what it is about him. I just don't see it. I don't see the hype about Bryan Barberena. I don't think his fights are actually really that fun either. I've never really understood it. He kind of got a weird treatment by the UFC where after he fought Matt Brown, and then Robbie Lawler, and then RDA in a 3-fight span. And Gunnar Nelson, I guess you could say, is a pioneer as well. He's been fighting for nearly as long as I've been alive. You know, so he fought he went on a Legends Row. The UFC done him all these favors. For what? You know, I don't think he's that fun of a fighter. I don't think he's that exciting. I don't think he's that interesting. And at 185 pounds, he's not a middleweight. You know, like he looked really bad against Makhmudmuradov. He looked out of shape. Muradov wasn't able to finish him, which was interesting. And now he's taking on GM3, who is 36 years old, definitely past his prime, but I still do think that GM3 has it to beat Barberena. Barberena doesn't have good grappling. His striking isn't that great. He's just very high volume. He doesn't really have the power to finish people, although he does have KOs. It takes a lot of volume for Barberena to finish someone, and GM3, although he's been KO'd a few times, he still does have a bit of a chin, you know. He ate some bombs from Petrosky in a fight which some people do believe won. I thought he won, but I'm actually well in the minority there. I thought GM3 won. I picked GM3 to win that fight as well, by the way, but maybe a bit of bias there. Bryan Barberena doesn't have good grappling. He's never had good grappling. GM3 is a good grappler. Put 2 and 2 together. I think GM3 takes down Barberena and beats him. Relatively low confidence pick, but I just think GM3's grappling is going to be too good for Barberena. And now we have Penny Kianzad taking on Messi Chiasson. This is a rematch. My dog is barking. My dog is with me actually this week, by the way. But just women's bantamweight. It's just so boring, man. It's just the worst division in the UFC. It really is. I think Messi Chiasson wins if she can make weight, and that's what it comes down to. If Chiasson misses weight and she looks really bad on the scale, my pick might change. My final picks go on Instagram, which I post the night before the fights. Chiasson I don't think she's ever really been able to make 135. She misses weight all the time at that weight class. Maybe only once. She fought at 145 a bunch of times. She's had a bunch of cancelled fights. You guys know what I mean. If Chiasson can make the weight, I think she beats Kianzad. She's going to be stronger than Kianzad in the clinch. I actually think she's a pretty good fighter, and she's really big for 135. She uses her size well. I'm just going to move on. I'm just going to dig myself into a hole. The point isn't picking Messi Chiasson by decision. Now we've got Christian Rodriguez taking on Isaac Dalgarian. I am going to be going with Isaac Dalgarian, and I understand, I guess, a big talking point in this matchup is that Isaac Dalgarian has never seen a second round. He's never seen a second round in his amateur career. He's never seen a second round in his pro career, and he went 4-0 as an amateur, all first round finishes. We don't know what the gas tank looks like after the first round, and I understand that Isaac Dalgarian will be training to fight for 3 rounds, but with a lot of these guys that finish fights early, we just don't know. That's the truth. We just don't know. Christian Rodriguez is a former bantamweight who couldn't make the weight, which is odd because I never really considered him to be a big bantamweight. They're both the same height, but Dalgarian's going to be much, much bigger than him. And he's turned away some really good contenders, but he's missed weight in these fights, man. Like, I don't know. And Rodriguez, his best performance came at 145. He looked really good against JSP, showed off some incredible defensive grappling, which I guess would be very important against Isaac Dalgarian, who is a very dominant wrestler with a very good wrestling background. But I've seen C-Rod taken down before by worse wrestlers. You know, Raul Rosas Jr. was able to take him down and control him a lot in that first round, and then he gassed out. Joshua Weems, I think, even took him down at one point. And then Jonathan Pearce was able to take him down over and over and over again. Isaac Dalgarian, he seems like a nice guy. He seems like a guy that's training hard. He lives in a caravan, to my knowledge, so that's a lot of motivation to really try and get those 50k performance bonuses to really just kind of improve his financial situation. I like Dalgarian, man. He's a guy. He's just good. He's a good fighter. Seems like a nice guy. Has cool merchandise, which I would buy if I didn't live on the other side of the world. I like Dalgarian. I think he's going to take down Rodriguez over and over and over again. What will happen if the fight gets out of the first round? Who knows? Sorry, I'm just hearing people talking about my dog. Anyway, I like Dalgarian. I think he gets it done. I think he wins this. Whoa, most people are picking Rodriguez. That doesn't make sense to me at all. Anyway, let me know what you think about that one in the comments below then. It seems like I might have a bit of a contrarian opinion on that matchup. Kennedy Nzechukwu is going to be taking on OSP. Nzechukwu is going to win. And I think in the first round. Like, Kennedy isn't a guy that I would just say has crazy power at this weight class because he's got negative fight IQ. And he's just a really frustrating fighter, you know. This guy's 6'5" with an 83-inch reach, 205 pounds. And if he was just a bit smarter, man, this guy would go so far. But his fight IQ is really bad. Sometimes he can hurt people and then you would clinch them up. And then the opposite will happen sometimes. It's just kind of frustrating with him. He's also got a really bad chin. He's been KO'd by ear before. Against, no, it wasn't this one. It was against Junior Park, I believe. Anyway. Was it Junior Park? I think it was. No, it wasn't. It's going to annoy me. Hold on. Anyway, the point is, Nzechukwu has been KO'd by ear before. And OSP, I know he's 41 years old. He still could maybe land a good shot. It was Daun Young, who KO'd him in the first round. With nothing. And OSP's 41. And he's not looking good. You know, he got smoked by Linz in like 90 seconds. He beat Shogun, but some people think Shogun beat him. Like, come on, man. What is this matchup? Maybe the UFC sees Kennedy as a potential big name fighter. I believe so. I think that Kennedy could actually make it pretty far in the UFC if he just made some pretty small improvements. But I think what it comes down to, man, Kennedy is 32, OSP's 41. Kennedy's going to knock him out, unfortunately. And now we've got Brian Battle taking on Angelusa. This is a really fun matchup, and Angelusa is a really good underdog. I'm just going to pick Battle, though. Once again, though, this pick could change. I think Lusa's a really good fighter, and he has proven that in the UFC. He beat AJ Fletcher in a bit of a war, in a fight which was at altitude. He showed good cardio. And then he beat Rhys McKee. But Rhys McKee almost finished him in that fight. He gave him an opportunity for McKee to win. Later in that fight, McKee almost finished him. And AJ Fletcher almost slipped him as well, actually, now that I bring it up. But AJ Fletcher gassed out at altitude. Is it altitude or is it elevation? I think it's elevation. Anyway, Brian Battle, I think he's going to be good enough on the feet to land something on Lusa. He's a bit of a sniper on the feet. Lusa leaves himself open, or he's left himself open in the UFC before. Lusa's a really good wrestler, but I think that Battle's takedown defense should be able to hold up. Although Renat just took him down over and over again. Renat is a pretty good fighter, though. I think Battle keeps it on the feet. I think he can land something big on Lusa as well. I think he can put Lusa in trouble on the feet, which is why I'm going to be going with Brian Battle to win this one here. And now we can move on to the main event. Tuivasa taking on Marcin Tybura. I'm picking Tuivasa. I thought he was going to be the underdog, but hey, it is what it is. I do like Tuivasa in this matchup. Marcin Tybura has a wrestling advantage. He could wrestle Tuivasa, but even then, Tuivasa's takedown defense is decent. It's not great. He does kind of rely on his size and his very wide hips from the Polynesian genes that he does have very wide hips that Polynesian people have. And I have very wide hips as well because I am moldy. But anyway, Tuivasa. I think he's going to be able to at least defend a takedown from Tybura, and it's going to be given the opportunity to get the KO in the first round. I think he's going to get it done. I think Tybura is not as good at striking as Tuivasa. Marcin Tybura has been KO'd a bunch of times in his career. To be fair, recently he has shown pretty good chins against some fighters. Like Alexander Volkov couldn't finish him, and Volkov's looking like a machine at the moment. But then he did get KO'd by Sakai in a minute. He got KO'd by Aspinall in a minute. Tuivasa, he fought for an interim title at one point, man, and he's just kind of been on a bit of a slow roll, but he's been taking on hard guys. Pavlovich and Volkov and Garn back to back to back. There's a lot of UFC heavyweights that will lose 3 in a row. I think Tuivasa's going to come back, man. I think he KOs Tybura. I think it's going to be fun. The celebration is going to be a bit miserable because it's in the Apex. If this was in a crowd, man, the celebration would be hype. But anyway, I like Tuivasa. I like Tuivasa by KO in round 1. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm sorry that video was probably terrible, but it's my first time recording a video in I think over a week. So I'm probably a bit rusty, but I'll be back with you guys for the next one. Yeah, that's it. There's a lot going on at the moment, so I'm sorry it's late. But hey, I'll see you guys later.